cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where we unite by the powers of Neptune. I'm your host, the porous and yellow Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever who is here with me today.
I still can't find my invisible boatmobile, but I'm Henry Gilbert.
And who do we have on the line?
I'm the little person from Mission Hill, Matthew J.
And today's episodes are the SpongeBob SquarePants episodes Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy and Pickles.
It's too bad they're old.
And Patrick is talking about us because we're incredibly old, and SpongeBob is too. It's going to be 20 years old in just a few months, and we're finally digging into SpongeBob. Jesus. I'm going to put it out there right now. It is the biggest cartoon worldwide in the past 2 decades.
I don't think there could be anything bigger than it. I mean, boy, it's hard to think of. Well, maybe some Pixar thing, maybe
Cars?
Yeah.
Let's say TV cartoon then.
Okay, if TV cartoons, I don't think there is a bigger one.
I'm willing to say just cartoon.
Cars has a whole theme park area based after. I think SpongeBob was not quite there, but I did just read. I just read a thing that as of late 2017, according to the Wikipedia page, the media franchise SpongeBob has generated $13 billion in merchandising revenue.
Yes,
Woo.
I mean, so I am producing this episode, and I did a ton of research into the history of SpongeBob and the sort of timeline of SpongeBob, and Jesus Christ, it's easy to forget just how immensely huge SpongeBob is because it's been with us for 20 years. But I mean, there was definitely a boom, but it's never not been big.
And it's turned into the Simpsons of the next generation. Really,
yes, yellow character.
Yeah, and it's just always there. And also, as Rebecca Sugar pointed out on our Poochie episode of Talking Simpsons, the divide now is for if you're an older millennial, you meme the Simpsons. If you're a younger millennial, you meme SpongeBob.
It's true. I see that SpongeBob as a chicken meme all over and over on the internet.
You see that SpongeBob as a chicken.
It was so big, so fast, and you guys might remember, that Nickelodeon throughout the 90s with the Nicktoons, they tried to merchandise them, and it never quite took. There was the talking Tommy doll and some little. I remember stuffed angry beavers and that. And I remember as a kid wanting merchandise really bad, and then the second SpongeBob came out, they smelled blood in the water and were here we go. They put him on everything.
We'll get to the merchandising soon because I definitely lived through that period and have a very close connection to it. But Matthew, you're a bit younger than us. We like to point this out every time you're on. But that means you might have a different relationship with SpongeBob because it came out on TV when you were a child, literally a child. So how did you find SpongeBob? What's your relationship with the show?
Yeah, I think it was 8 because it was the end of 98, right? So I guess it would have been 9.
It's actually
it was something in 98.
99 right? is the premiere date.
99.
Yes,
I remember. I think it was officially in 99, and they did that thing that Nickelodeon would do back then, and they still kind of do Nickelodeon Cartoon Network, where they would show the first episode a million times before they had a full season.
Yeah,
I remember the pilot getting shown a lot and being so excited for more episodes to come out.
They showed the pilot after the Kids' Choice Awards, but it wouldn't actually. They wouldn't actually run the series until months later. So I think
and
that
I remember
was
just
April.
Wanting more and being when are they going to have more? And then they finally made a big announcement where they're we're going to play more episodes, and it was I think I can't remember if they did a bomb or if they did weekly episodes, but I definitely remember the huge announcement of more episodes are finally coming of this thing that you want.
A SpongeBob. So did you follow this all the way through? Are you still a viewer? I'm curious, so this show has been on for 20 years, and I wonder if there's a similar SpongeBob narrative, season 8 is when the decline started, but then season 14, bam! I know there are only 12 seasons, but you know what I mean. I'm just curious, is there
definitely... There is. That definitely exists. People mostly consider Steven Hillenburg, the creator, left after the movie, and he eventually came back. But a lot of people considered that to be and that's the next era. And it did dip in quality, but was still okay. And now I don't watch it regularly now, but I will pop in every once in a while just because I have same reason I watch South Park. I just have to because my body needs it, because it's had it for my whole life. I had this dependency on SpongeBob, and now when I go back in, it's like really funny. It's really good and funny and well animated. I remember not liking it as much. I don't know if the show actually changed or if I changed or what, but I think it's still good.
Yeah, by the time this recording comes out, it'll be starting its 12th season in November of 2018. So they are still making new episodes.
Though they made some of those seasons last about 4 years.
Yeah, I think one of the orders was like 40 episodes after the movie.
Well, that's an ingenious thing of Nickelodeon too, that they milked their episodes as long as they could. Like especially at the end of season 3, as they just dropped off production until the movie to work on the movie, that they turned one segment into 2 episodes like 3 or 4 times, and they just put Tom Kenny in a costume and we're like, well, this can fill the other 11 minutes.
Dance around, Tom.
But I was the older fan of this and came to this in the way obviously at 17 I was too cool for SpongeBob when it premiered in 1999.
Oh, me too.
And I was an OG Nicktoons fan, but around the time of Cat Dog, I was like, well, this isn't for me anymore. These Nicktoons are not for me. And I figured SpongeBob was the same way, and I was just too cool for school. It wasn't until probably post 9/11, I think it was, that my friends finally told me, like, no, this show's fucking hilarious. It's the greatest. And so then when I dived into it, it was like season 3 was airing, and I just had dozens and dozens of episodes of SpongeBob to watch, and I did love every minute of it. And I think it really did help bring me back to watching children's animation and still enjoying it as an adult.
Yeah, we were all reflecting a lot at that time, I think, and rethinking a lot of things post 9/11.
Upon doing this research, I have a theory that 9/11 is what made SpongeBob a mega hit, because we needed a positive character to heal as a country. Right. I'm not even kidding. That is my theory.
No, I buy that.
But as for me, like, I had the same thing that was going on with Henry, in which I was 17. I was also way into anime, probably approaching the peak of my anime nerddom. I'm still a huge anime nerd, but I was just like, well, all American cartoons are trash now. I only watch anime. And like Henry was saying, I kind of liked Hey Arnold, but Angry Beavers wasn't doing it for me, and Cat Dog wasn't doing it for me. Amazing Thornberrys, God, that was not doing it for me. So I was just sort of like, I didn't even know about SpongeBob until the merchandising started hitting. And my first girlfriend out of high school worked at a Suncoast. We worked in the same mall, and at that point in time, I think it was early 2002. Just a section of like now how like when you go into a GameStop, there will be a Funko section.
Right.
Back then, there was a SpongeBob section, like all the SpongeBob shit you could possibly find. And
there was a SpongeBob section and a Family Guy section and a Simpsons section.
Yes, but I swear the SpongeBob section was bigger than even like the anime section. During the anime boom, there was just so much SpongeBob stuff. And she liked the show, and because she liked the show, I started watching it with her, and I really got into it. And then we had a terrible breakup, and I associated SpongeBob with her, so I didn't watch it for 15 years. So I'm going back to it for the first time since like 2003. Wow. And I've had several bad breakups since then, so now that's not a problem anymore. But I'm going back into it. Yeah, old news. Boo, who cares? But I went back into this just this week, and I was like laughing my ass off at these episodes, and I couldn't believe, like, oh my God, I forgot how funny this was. And it's fun to think, there are 10 years of SpongeBob and 2 movies I can watch now that are totally new to me.
Yeah, it was so great to return to these and watch them. The first 4 seasons are all available on Amazon Prime, Prime membership. So I just zipped around and watched like, oh, I think I remember that title of an episode. And then I'd watch it and be like, I remember every single joke in this. This is so funny. And another thing I think really helps SpongeBob with an adult audience is that it is just so freaking absurd and low impact that it is good stoner viewing as well. Like it is, if you want to, for adults.
I learned later in life that I liked all this stoner shit before I became a stoner. I don't know what that says about me in any way.
And it's also like really smart and grown up. Like I wrote down a couple of the jokes. Like there's one where I think Barnacle Boy, somebody's looking at a newspaper and one of the headlines is just school dropout rate soars.
Yeah.
Like that's just a throwaway joke on a children's cartoon that is not even really a joke. It's just like a cynical old man making a children's cartoon.
It's related to nothing in the episode itself. Yeah, I love that. But I want to go into the history of SpongeBob SquarePants, and unfortunately, we can't cover it all because there's 20 years worth of history. But like, we could do a podcast series about the history of SpongeBob. And I found an amazing article online. And of course, because nothing is preserved online, all the formatting is broken, but it's still readable.
The text is still there.
Yeah. If you just Google the oral history of SpongeBob SquarePants, you'll find it. It's like
Is this on 1UP?
that is unreadable. This is actually readable. So it's called The Oral History of SpongeBob SquarePants. It's about 40,000 words long. I read the whole thing, and it is up until 2012, the history of the show. They talked to almost everybody. It is so in-depth. I learned so much. It is so great, and I pulled a lot of this from that history. So don't go on YouTube and watch the 109 facts you didn't know about SpongeBob. Go online and actually read text. You'll learn a lot about SpongeBob. And I'm going to talk a little bit about where it came from and the creator, of course, but talk about when it started. So there are 12 seasons so far. It started on May 1st, 1999, and that was the same night as the Kids' Choice Awards of that year. I imagine Britney Spears took home all the awards.
99, yeah, it would have been between her, NSYNC, and Christina Aguilera, I would think.
It's so weird to think of SpongeBob as a 90s show.
Yeah, it comes from the TRL era, the same era as like Tom Green and Eminem. Like
I was not a legal adult when this show was started on TV. I can't believe it. But
It's like a 90s show, like The Simpsons is an 80s show, you know?
That's true. I guess in that
Is
case,
it really?
Family Guy's a 90s show too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, the creator, of course, is Steven Hillenburg. If you go back to our Rocko's Modern Life episode for What a Cartoon on Wacky Deli, we talk a bit about Steven Hillenburg. His basically only animation role before SpongeBob was being a director on SpongeBob. He was hired by Joe Murray. I believe they had short films in the same Ottawa Animation Festival when he was recruiting animators for Rocko's Modern Life. So Steven Hillenburg worked on Rocko from the first season onwards, and he basically ran the fourth season when Joe Murray took a step back because of personal problems, and we talk a lot about those on that episode of What a Cartoon. But yes,
I forget if I said this on the Rocko episode, but did I mention that I have an issue of Wild Cartoon Kingdom that mentions Steven Hillenburg when he was like a CalArts student?
Whoa! Really? Wow!
It mentions him as they made him and some other guy I've never heard of made this. I don't know if they made it to produce it and sell it, or they just made one and they sent it to them. But it was like a little figure of Walt Disney with a Mickey hat on, and he was frozen in a block of ice. And the idea is that like it's a Walt figure you can buy and put it in your freezer and freeze it.
That sounds awesome. And boy, I do love Wild Cartoon Kingdom, even though it's extremely biased. But yes, so Steven Hillenburg's professional career began in 1984 as a marine biology teacher at the Orange County Marine Institute, which is pretty weird, but it makes total sense.
It feels like something you would read in a made-up biography for kids of just like, it's too perfect.
He is so closely connected to undersea life. So at that institute, he created a comic called The Intertidal Zone. It was all about tide pool animals, and the comic was co-hosted by Bob the Sponge, who looked more like an actual sea sponge than, the kitchen sponge that SpongeBob is. Mm-hmm. And he left teaching in 1987. In 1989, as Matthew pointed out earlier, he enrolled in CalArts, where all of the secret cabal of animators that have taken over the world of animation went to.
They all decided they all decided together they would ruin animation.
And they would draw characters with bean-shaped heads. How dare they? I'm lying, of course. But so after enrolling in CalArts, I assume he graduated, and he was offered a job on Rocko's Modern Life. And he made 2 shorts there. One is called Green Beret, and that is available on YouTube to watch. It's about a Girl Scout with giant fists who destroys an entire neighborhood when she's selling cookies. And another one is called Wormholes, which has never been seen online, and only like one picture of it exists. But apparently that was his senior thesis. I don't know if it's available anywhere to find on any sort of compilation, but those are 2 of the short films he released before jumping to Rocko. So he just basically went Rocko, SpongeBob, retirement. That's kind of how his path went.
That's pretty amazing. Like that. I mean, you got to give it to Joe Murray too for identifying this skill and talent of Steven Hillenburg and moving him up the totem pole at Rocko and giving him a chance. And like when we did the Rocko Wacky Deli one, I was like, this is a pilot for SpongeBob. Like all the stuff SpongeBob does, including like Hawaiian themed food in live action footage is in that episode.
I forgot about that. If you read the oral history, you'll learn that Steven was like just the superstar on Rocco. They would give him all the best stuff to do, and that is why he excelled at Rocco, and that's why Nickelodeon sort of, were willing to listen to his pitch for a new series. But so in 1994, he was working on Rocco, and another writer had to encourage him to try pitching a show to Nickelodeon because he was like, well, I saw what Joe Murray went through and how hard it is to run a cartoon, and I don't know if I want to run a cartoon on Nickelodeon. But that's when he started developing these comic book characters into what would become SpongeBob SquarePants. And the original name of SpongeBob SquarePants was Sponge Boy Ahoy. So SpongeBob was Sponge Boy, but apparently Sponge Boy was the name of a mop or something like that.
Oh, it was also in the Flaming Carrot comics too.
Really?
There was
Okay.
a character called Sponge Boy, which complicated matters.
And I remember reading way back in the 90s on some website, it's probably made up, but that Tim Burton had a character called Stain Boy, and that was too close. I don't know. It's not
I hadn't
important
heard
at all.
that one.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I
so
don't know that, but the other stuff I remember reading in Nickelodeon magazine in like some of the last days of that being relevant.
Honestly, Bob is better than Boy. Like it's,
I agree.
I know we're
More-
biased here. But
more Bobs on TV in general.
this month of What a
And Mr.
Cartoon,
Krabs calls him Sponge Boy Me Bob.
I love that.
Still pretty
Another of
good.
my favorites. This month on What a Cartoon is Bob a month because we have two different shows with Bob in the
Oh my
title.
God, I just realized that. It's a time to be thankful for Bobs.
Every month is Bob month at What a Cartoon.
It's true. Every day is Bob
Never
Day.
Henry month.
Well, and Robotech it contains the word Rob. So
Oh,
it's
that's right.
close
Oh
to
my
Bob
God.
as well.
We need to get rid of one of the weeks on this schedule. Working another Bob. But,
But that's Aqua Teen.
oh shit, there's got to be a Bob in there
Oh, God, the
somewhere.
Devil and Bob. Do that one.
We talked about that for a Bob theme month. It's not going to happen. Sorry, folks. But yes, so Steven Hillenburg worked as a showrunner on the series, and up until the third season, which he intended to be the finale. So he said, 60 episodes is enough. The movie will be the finale. And of course, Nickelodeon will respect me as the creator and not continue the show in my absence. Meanwhile, this was the early 2000s, and they were just printing money at Nickelodeon. SpongeBob was the money factory. So obviously, the show continued for 15 years at this point, post Hillenburg.
Well, I mean, in those filler episodes, so it was 60 half hours, but thanks to the live action filler they put in on those, it was more like they turned 52-ish episodes, their
Yeah.
normal run it forever rerun order, turned that into 60. And I also think it's amazing, like when I counted those 60 episodes up and realized those are 2-segment shows, it makes me think like Steven Universe, which feels like a very well-established and long-running show to me now, I think has as many episodes as just the first 3 seasons of
Oh, wow.
SpongeBob has, just in the 12-minute chunks together.
Yeah,
And
Steven's
they would produce them in like huge chunks. And then I remember reading interviews with Tom Kenny where he's like, I haven't played SpongeBob in like 3 years. And like it's still airing.
Yeah, so Steven was like, so Ren and Stimpy ran for 52 and Rocco ran for 52. Why should we go any further than that? All those shows did what they had to do. They didn't get terrible, and then they ended, and that was fine. That's what SpongeBob will do. But of course, they didn't, and I think he still continued on the show in an advisory role after that. But unfortunately, it seems like he didn't do too much of note after SpongeBob SquarePants. Of course, he is co-writing the new movie, It's a Wonderful Sponge, and that is being produced with a team separate from the TV series, and that'll be out in 2020. But it is weird, and it's a trap I fall into where it's like, hey, person who made the greatest thing ever, when's the next thing?
Yeah.
It's like sometimes you just make the greatest thing ever, and that's it, and you're good.
He should be free to sit on his money. And also, he, as well, has health problems he's dealing with, too.
Yeah,
right?
he was diagnosed with ALS in 2017. That's also known as Lou Gehrig's syndrome if you're living in the 40s. And he made an appearance at the Annies. He didn't get up to accept it or anything, so I don't know how his health is doing, and I wish him the best. He's still fairly young. He's only in his 50s.
Yeah, it's and he should be. I would hope he's a billionaire from those.
Jesus.
I mean, he should have that
sure
much
he
of a
is.
chunk of it. His name gets to be on everything. Like it is, he has the Matt Groening power. So I would hope he's a billionaire like Matt Groening is as well.
Me too. And so I tried to find out what he worked on after SpongeBob, after the movie in 2004. The only short I found that he actually completed, and it was delayed by years, it was called Hollywood Boulevard USA. And it's about the people on Hollywood Boulevard you take pictures with.
Oh, okay.
And it does not look like a
Cool.
Steven Hillenburg piece. It looks like it's rotoscoped and stuff like that. It's very odd. I think he was
Interesting.
trying a new style. I can't find out where to watch that online, but it seems like he was involved with a lot of projects that never got off the ground. And like, who wouldn't want Steven Hillenburg to, guide their project into creation?
I know,
but
right?
I'm surprised none of this stuff made it out. I mean, even if it seemed like it'd be a failure, it's like, we got the SpongeBob guy attached to this. Let's put it out. Let's do something with it. But I don't know what happened, and I feel like it's a loss to the world, but also I don't want to. I fall into the trap again, like, make the greatest thing ever again, or make something else, buddy. But maybe he just won't make anything else. But he is working on the new movie, and hopefully his health will not fail him. And I don't know what the current technology and science is for helping people with ALS, but I assume it's much better than it was in the past.
We dumped all that ice water on ourselves, didn't we?
Oh, that's what that was for.
Right?
I was just hot.
Oh God! Those first 3 seasons are so dear to me. And I do think it was the special creative mix of people that you kind of lose. It's like it was like change. I watched some of season 4 and 5 as a SpongeBob fan, and it definitely did feel like how a Simpsons feels after a change in showrunner, though not a change a bad change necessarily, but definitely a different soul to it for sure. And I mean, Phil Tippett, who took it over, does a very good job. I think he's of quality control on SpongeBob, and he hired a lot of really good folks from all around animation to help with it. But also those first 3 seasons, which are so great, it's just full of Rocco people too.
Yeah, Mr. Lawrence is there doing voices
now
and
he's
animation.
Mr. Lawrence,
yes.
not Doug Lawrence anymore. Yeah. No, when it hit me that Filbert he has so many very masculine and strong voices like you'll hear in this one. It's so funny to me that he was Filbert for so long.
He is such a good voice actor, and there are a lot of YouTube clips of him in interviews. He looks still super young. He's got to be in his late 40s at the earliest, but he looks like a 12-year-old boy, Mr. Lawrence. I don't know what his secret is. It's that
and his performances and stuff. That's another thing that kind of rolls over from Rocco into this. Is it's this madcap, very colorful, very happy kids cartoon, but it's very naturalistic, and it's got a nice pace. Where sometimes SpongeBob will just he'll leisurely walk across the screen to do whatever he has to do next. And it's nice. It doesn't feel crazy, or they have to keep throwing stuff in kids' faces to get them to pay attention. SpongeBob, he's just a guy that hangs out and does nothing. He goes to the jellyfish farms and he catches jellyfish and he goes to work. And then when he's not, he's hanging out with Patrick at their 2 houses. I think that's a thing that's a very important Hillenburg touch that I'm sure he also brought to Rocco, that you don't see as much in kids cartoons these days.
It's a little bit more laid back than Rocco, and I think I like Rocco more than SpongeBob, but in Rocco, everyone is always screaming. Everything makes a fart noise. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of just anger and hostility and tension. But SpongeBob is a little more laid back. I mean, there is a lot of screaming in SpongeBob. There are fart noises when Squidward walks around, but it is a little more of a gentler show at times.
I think
SpongeBob also has that thing from Rocco of every single thing has a sound effect, but they're a little more. They're not as they're farty, but they don't sound like real farts. There's the scene in this episode in Barnacle Boy when they're getting their food in the cafeteria, and every time they drop the meatloaf, it makes a little squish noise. It's not jokes. I was cracking up at just them dropping the broccoli on their plates.
I was reading the oral history, and I think at the beginning they were using the same Rocco canned library sound effects, but as the show started entering production and more episodes were being made, they got a Foley guy to do super specific sounds, like renting a car to get certain car noises and doing their own, unique sounds for the show.
I think the relaxed sound design is really helped by just the constant ukulele I'm on the islands, woohoo, on a tropical island. That's an Adventure Time there, sorry.
It's okay. I mean, it is very much like Ren and Stimpy in that they use a lot of library music, which I like to hear. I love the cheesy, tacky library music of SpongeBob, but there's also a lot of original music too, including original songs and things like that.
There's a bit of Ren and Stimpy in its DNA as well. I mean, especially there's so many painted character cutaways that Ren and Stimpy really popularized, of just and you look good, don't you? And then just a painting of SpongeBob looking stupid.
They're not as grotesque and horrifying. I like the Garbage Pail Kids look more, but I have to say, this came at an era. So Steven wanted to do the show because, he heard Nickelodeon is getting away from board-driven shows. And this is in the Ren and Stimpy and the Rocco model where it's the the artists write the story via pictures. It's not like I assume Rugrats or Doug or Hey Arnold, where it's like we write the script and then, the art comes afterwards. So he heard they were getting out of that kind of cartooning because it was way more expensive. And he was like, well, this is my last shot to make SpongeBob SquarePants. And I have to assume like they're a little bit of half and half on Nickelodeon with board and, script driven cartoons at this point in time. I totally forget what's on Nickelodeon right now.
These days, boy, I really don't know. I mean, I know it's on, they're bringing back on Splat, but I don't know, other than more SpongeBob reruns, I don't really know what Nickelodeon's programming is.
They are bringing back
Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Shows on there.
Totally.
That's the only one I can think of right now.
That makes me feel so old that like they have now extra rebooted the reboot of Turtles, which I thought was new. They're like
the 2007
it's like,
movie. Yeah.
No, they had their CG show.
Oh yeah,
Nickelodeon's Ninja Turtles. That's so old now that they're like, no, we need a Flash animated new Ninja Turtle show.
Time makes fools of us all. So we brought
Sanjay
up
and Craig still on. That's a show.
Oh,
I don't think so.
But that show makes me mad because the name
up.
the name confuses me with Craig of the Creek, which is a much better show.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
We can't have two Craig shows, people. But we talked about Ren and Stimpy before, and someone else made this comparison. I forget who. It might have been Thad Komorowski or some other animation guy. But I think SpongeBob is the Ren and Stimpy Nickelodeon always wanted. It has mass appeal. Yeah. It is absurdist. But it's softer, it's less nihilistic, it's more marketable, and it's also more reliable in terms of production.
Mm-hmm.
Even
get
though
more of it, and you've got a person who plays ball instead of screaming at you.
Yes, it's not drawn by a psychotic pedophile.
Yes, also that.
Jeez.
But yes, and lots of absurdism. So I think this, like Nickelodeon, their first big hit was Ren and Stimpy in terms of their own original animation, and that kind of fizzled out fast in terms of how profitable it was for them, and it continued to be a reliable, good show after John Kay left. But SpongeBob was the kind of thing they always wanted. There was no drama. When Steven Hillenburg left, there wasn't a big explosion. There wasn't a split in the company. There was not people online arguing, no, the post-Steven ones are terrible. Let her bomb that office. Things like that. I assume maybe there was a little bit of that, but it was not as intense as a Spumco Games animation split in any way, because the creator was not encouraging that.
And I also think of another Rocco connection to this, but a major part of the show's success is Tom Kenny.
Yes, Tom Kenny harnessing his manic energy for SpongeBob. He does a ton of voices on the show, but he is just like at the top of his game in this show.
SpongeBob is his voice acting masterpiece.
It is.
I mean, that's the one he'll be remembered for forever. As Matt pointed out in his intro line, you hear the proto SpongeBob voice on an episode of Mission Hill. He had discovered it for that first.
I think he was playing Kenny Baker or something like
yes,
that.
Like a parody of it, or it's more a parody of the other guy, the one who played Wicket.
Oh, Warwick Davis.
Oh yeah.
It was more like a Warwick Davis kind of thing, but he was a fictional character. But yeah, he has the exact same voice, and I think he's told several apocryphal stories about where that voice came from. One of them was that he was walking down the street in Los Angeles and did hear a little person yelling at somebody, and that it sounded like that.
In Swear,
I don't know.
That
feels more like a funny, like 90s funny comedian.
The story a comedian would make up.
The one I heard on Mark Maron, and it's on YouTube. It's he was auditioning for a live action thing, and I guess it was Christmas related because there were little people there, and they were auditioning for elves, and one of them was just very foul mouthed and bitter about the business, saying, "We only get work on Christmas, God damn it! It's always Christmas. It's all we ever get." And
that's a good Mark Maron.
That's where he got. Who are your guys, SpongeBob? But yes, that's where the voice came from. But yeah, Tom Kenny, and in the oral history, it's great. You hear about when he found out he got the job. He was like, I was filming Mr. Show. I was dressed as a wizard in this farm, and it smelled like shit, and it was 90 degrees. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. And I know the sketch it was the medieval educational film.
The world's first educational film.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's a great sketch, but boy, they suffered on Mr. Show.
Science is a dream a wizard has.
Yes. But yeah, Mr. Kenny. Tom Kenny obviously came from Rocco. He did the voice of Heifer. He was on Mr. Show. He was a stand-up. But this and Rocco just really catapulted him into the world of voice acting. I think you could not turn on a show in the late 90s, early 2000s without hearing Tom Kenny, period.
No way. And now...
Yeah, I was thinking about that recently because he was on absolutely everything. He was one of the first voice actors I learned to recognize and point out to my parents as I was watching cartoons by myself. And you would hear him on everything. And then SpongeBob, as it took off, he'd be in less things because he didn't need to work as much. But then I feel like lately I've been hearing him a lot more again. And I think it's just that, like, I think it's just he's either like building his nest egg for his kids, or he just wants to work again, which I hope is what it is. I hope that he's like I was SpongeBob for so long and I'd like to be in more things.
He seems like a guy who likes to work. He's a working actor who likes doing his job, and he loves being in the recording studio. I mean, well, here's a funny Tom Kenny story I have is that I think I've told this story before, but I went to at a time when there was when more Arrested Development excited me, I went to a panel for Sit Down, Shut Up, a show that isn't really a show, but the Tom Kenny worked on. And so he's at the panel for it, and along with other famous people, and a person went up and said, like, in the Q&A section, and asked people to say their lines like they asked Will Arnett, like, could you say I've made a terrible mistake? And all these other...
Can you record a voicemail message for me?
Yeah, and they had all these requests, and everybody else was like, I'm not doing that. But when they asked Tom Kenny to do the SpongeBob laugh, he's like, oh, sure. He just did it. He just did, like, that's
it's
how
called professionalism.
He's an accommodating, nice man. I think
He doesn't mind being the monkey that dances for you.
Yeah,
because he's a good monkey dancer.
He's so good at it.
So other people on the show, Bill Fagerbakke or Fagerbaki. I don't know how to say his name without it sounding offensive, so I apologize. But obviously, if you grew up in the '90s, you know him as Dauber on Coach, a dumb character, a very duh idiot, and he is so good as Patrick. I don't know if he did any voice work before this, but even he did. Okay.
On Gargoyles.
You're right.
He was Broadway or Bronx. I forget which one.
He played the big...
I think it's Broadway.
The big dumb gargoyle.
Yes, yeah.
But
who actually got the girl in the end. And people shouldn't trust their opinions to his looks. He actually is the most soulful and important gargoyle there is in a way.
He is a Lenny-style idiot. But yes, so Patrick is very much a Stimpy-style character in this world. He lives literally under a rock. He's very stupid. Basic concepts escape him. He also can get psychotic at times. So Patrick is a great, I wouldn't say foil, but a good companion to SpongeBob's positivity. It's like a different wavelength of positivity.
He's one of the best stupid characters in animation. Like I was just rewatching some, and one of my favorite bits he did was in the training video one for the Krusty Krab, where he walks in and he hears the narrator and he's like, is that a ghost? Your ceiling is talking.
He's so good. And
that episode, man, to get off topic and talk about another episode, that episode like blew my mind as a child because of the format break. Like shows had done format breaking episodes, but just that show did it so well. It's like the platonic perfect example of format breaking an episode of your show.
And so we also have Clancy Brown playing Mr. Krabs. Clancy Brown is a venerable character actor. And now he mostly does voice work. Mr. Krabs is a great kind of Scrooge McDuck style character.
Except
he's the Kurgan.
Yeah, he is Kurgan. But he is a Scrooge McDuck style cheapskate. He's a Scrooge McDuck for our generation in that he also is like, he's not super rich. He's a skinflint, but on a smaller like franchisee of McDonald's scale.
He's like anyone who owns a local business.
Exactly.
But he's the only character in this show that talks like a pirate.
Yeah, that's true.
which I find funny. And he has peg legs.
His peg leg walk. It reminds me too of like Dexter's walk, of just that his legs move more than he moves.
The little shuffle noise he makes.
And his Clancy Brown. He's so fucking good in this, and like he's normally playing mean guys or like Lex Luthor. He is the best Lex Luthor in my opinion, and so it's so funny to see that his most famous role is the evil Mr. Krabs, or well, the tightwad Mr. Krabs. He's only evil in like half the episodes.
It's true. And finally, I mean, there are so many people on this show, like Jill Talley, and there are a lot of voice actors talked about, but Mr. Lawrence, we mentioned him before. He's so good. He plays Plankton. I believe he auditioned as the original voice of SpongeBob. He used sort of like a Gregory Peck style voice, which was not the direction they went with the character, but he is so good. And like, I want him to do voice acting and other stuff. I just love, even when he's doing a background like Fish saying one line, I'm like, that's Mr. Lawrence. He's so good. He's so
good.
My leg. And I'm so happy that someday we'll get to see that new Rocko's Modern Life and that he's doing Filbert again.
They said 2018, Henry and Matt. Where is my Rocko movie?
It's still 2018. I'm checking my watch.
I will buy the Blu-ray. I will give you money. We have 2 months left.
We'll give you money.
But yes, that is basically the SpongeBob history so far. And I will say that I said this is a gentler version of Ren and Stimpy. It's sort of the more successful version of Ren and Stimpy. If you want a SpongeBob that is Ren and Stimpy, go watch The Misadventures of Flapjack, which I feel like is SpongeBob, but like the grossness I sort of want from SpongeBob, where not Flashback. Flapjack is SpongeBob. Captain Knuckles is Mr. Krabs. I don't know who the Patrick is in that show, but it feels very SpongeBob inspired to me, and the nautical themes and everything.
I guess Bubby, just by process of elimination,
just by being large.
Well, also with Flapjack, I was thinking of that too because I watched one of the Fry and Dutchman episodes, and he's voiced by Brian Doyle Murray, who is Captain Knuckles. So I wonder if that, Brian Doyle Murray was famous before he played the Fry and Dutchman, though.
He was in Caddyshack 2.
He was.
He was in Caddyshack 1 as well. Don't sell too short.
And he was in the soft reboot of Get a Life, playing Chris Peterson's roommate or landlord.
And
Wayne's World.
And Wayne's World, yeah.
The villain of Wayne's World.
And also he was on the bad season of SNL. Well, not bad, but they lost Bill Murray, so what if we got his brother?
Lesser.
Hey, they did better with Murray's than they did with Belushi's.
Or Farley's.
Ooh, Kevin Farley.
He never made it to SNL, though. But yes, I will say we will do Flapjack at some point. I really want to do it, but that definitely feels like the first real, next SpongeBob they were trying to make, or SpongeBob-inspired show. And of course, there's probably been more, but I really can't think of any that kind of ran with what SpongeBob was doing in terms of,
There's a show that is basically a kid's mystery science theater that is their nautical. They're like I think they're pirates. They're like pirates or sailors or something. And it is exactly Mystery Science Theater. Like they have host segments and they watch old movies and make fun of them in silhouette. I forget what it's called. If somebody could find it, look it up. But it was very much, what if we put SpongeBob and MS-23K together?
Interesting. I've never seen this. But also one last thing I want to go over is that SpongeBob is not gay.
What?
He's asexual. I mean, I guess SpongeBob became a gay icon. But, you could put whatever you want in a SpongeBob. It doesn't matter. He's a sponge. But
he reproduces by buddy.
But yeah, I guess there was some sort of scandal where, SpongeBob became a gay icon. You can't really control what becomes a gay icon. But because of SpongeBob's, positivity and his non-masculine traits.
His love of rainbows.
Love of rainbows. Yes, it's true. But
his relationship with Patrick. I remember that being, when I was a kid, that was they tried to make that one of the satanic panics. This was just following the Pokemon, Pokemon are demons. And it was right before the Harry Potter is demons. This was the SpongeBob is demons.
SpongeBob is demons. But yeah, I will say I don't really remember that movement.
Oh,
anyway.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
I definitely do.
Well, I know it from actually a retail level. When I was when I was in my most Squidward-like phase of being a retail jockey who was mad, I worked at a Blockbuster Video. And I was working at the Blockbuster Video in the fall of, I want to say 03? No, 05. So there was a kids entertainment special that was basically the free to be you and me of the 2000s is what it wanted to be. And it just had an overall message of acceptance that obviously did soft pedal be accepting of gay people, but didn't literally say that. Now that those types of things would have the balls to be able to say that. But back then, they just kind of soft pedaled it. But it included the very funny shot from the wrestling episode of SpongeBob where SpongeBob and Patrick realize they're friends because they wear underwear of the opposite color. And so it's a very funny image of them walking away hand in hand happily in their underwear.
And they're very ripped as well. They had turned into very ripped large men at that point, this.
Right? Yes. So that was a core part of the scare of saying that SpongeBob was gay. And I remember working at Blockbuster and having, this is in Northern Florida, a conservative area. And several people complained, you're selling SpongeBob things at this Blockbuster. It's gay propaganda. And I was like, if only. But then this guy came up. He's like, I can't believe they say it's gay. I was like, well, you could read. I don't think SpongeBob is a gay show. I would call Steven Universe a gay show. I would not call SpongeBob a gay show. But I told this guy, like, well, if you want to read homosexuality into anything, you can. And then he said, like, yeah, I could act like a real flaming homo right now, and people will believe it. I was like, that's not what I was saying, but sure.
Weird.
Yeah.
I mean, we grew up in, I guess, less enlightened areas, Henry, and I remember just gayness being read into everything as this hostile takeover, and just like that. If you were a male and had a male friend, like, oh, let's go see a movie or hang out together, like, oh, they're gay. Those guys are gay because they hang out. It's like,
that's why you need at least one seat separating you, or else people will think you're gay.
Exactly. We did not abide by that rule. We broke society's laws, but
That's because you're so gay.
yes, exactly. We'll see you on the other side with more talk of SpongeBob.
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you.
Aye, aye, Captain!
Oh! Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
SpongeBob SquarePants!
Absorbent and yellow and porous is he.
SpongeBob SquarePants!
If nautical nonsense be something you wish,
SpongeBob SquarePants!
then drop on the deck and flop like a fish.
SpongeBob SquarePants!
Ready? SpongeBob SquarePants! SpongeBob SquarePants! SpongeBob SquarePants! SpongeBob SquarePants!
Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Break. I am Bob Mackey, and I might live in a pineapple under the sea. Who is here with me today?
Still hiding under a rock, Henry Ilbert.
Are you saying I'm the SpongeBob to your Patrick?
I guess so.
Actually, we're both Squidward.
Yeah, I think that's
Ultimately. But yes, we're here to tell you about the Talking Simpsons Network. It funds our entire operation, and if you don't donate to it, you're evil!
evil.
Yes, you'll find out more about that after this break. But yes, the Talking Simpsons Network, it funds everything that we do, and if you sign up today, you'll get so much cool stuff at the low cost of $5 a month. So for $5, you get every episode of this podcast a week ahead of time and ad-free. The same goes for Talking Simpsons. It's the ideal way to listen to both shows. We also have mini-series like Talking Futurama, Talking Critic. We'll have our mini-series for 2019 coming up very, very soon. We have tons of interviews. We have lots of season wrap-up specials, deleted scene specials, and our monthly community podcast, Talk to the Audience. Henry, what are two of the most recent things that we've done that are extra special just for patrons?
Well, I definitely would send people to listen to our interview with Bill Morrison, where we chatted with him about his history of co-founding the Bongo Comics Simpsons comic book world, as well as his influence on Futurama. Plus, if I were to go back into the backlogs, definitely I think folks who like this chat about kids' cartoons would like to hear our full interview with Ian Jones-Quartey,
Oh, yeah.
the creator of OKKO, about the influences the Simpsons and other cartoons had on him to create his amazing animated series, OKKO.
And we have revamped the $10 tier for premium patrons. So if you want to subscribe at the $10 level, what we're doing, we used to do a video every month.
And all those are still there.
Yes, they will always be there, but we decided you people want podcasts from us. We're doing as much as we can, so we're going to do an extra podcast for the $10 subscribers, and that will be a movie podcast, the What a Cartoon movie podcast, where we watch a movie and comment on it in the same style as What a Cartoon. And our patrons in the $5 and up levels can vote on which movie that we see, and that will launch in the middle of every month. And this month, patrons voted on the Batman the Animated Series movie, Mask of the Phantasm. You can only listen to that episode if you subscribe at the $10 level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. And if you can only give $1 a month, you can still access our monthly community podcast, Talk to the Audience, where we talk about the news going on in the Simpsons world and our world, and we listen and respond to comments and questions from you, the listener.
You know, Bob, all this chat about SpongeBob also reminds me of the classic 90s Nick shows that are on Nick Splat, which is one of the many TV show collections that you can watch on Verve. That's right, Verve is also a sponsor of this week's podcast. And if you sign up for a 30-day free trial through verve.co/WAC, that's vrv.co/whack, you can sign up for a 30-day free trial of it today and check out not just all the classic Nick animation and game shows on Nick Splat, but also a ton of anime too.
That's right. So that's vrv.co/WAC. And now we'll get back to our SpongeBob SquarePants What a Cartoon already in progress.
SpongeBob SquarePants, he's unique. His head clean spills. SpongeBob SquarePants makes sneak peek right after Kids' Choice. His show's a real hoot. He lives in a fruit. SpongeBob SquarePants makes sneak peek right after Kids' Choice. Don't miss Nick's newest Nicktoon. It's the never-before-seen sneak peek of SpongeBob SquarePants right after the Kids' Choice Awards. Tonight on the best place to turn for new toys, Nickelodeon.
Prepare to be vanquished.
Big Larry came round just to put him down. SpongeBob turned into a clown, and no girl ever wants to dance with a fool who went and ripped his pants. I know I shouldn't mope around, I shouldn't curse, but the pain feels so much worse.
So today's episode is actually two shorts, as most SpongeBob episodes are, and it aired on August 21st, 1999. So before we start, we got to thank Phil Jacoby. It is his money that made this episode happen. He selected these episodes of SpongeBob. And so thanks a lot, Phil. We usually read a message from the patron, but he didn't send one, and that's fine. So we're doing what you want, and we love SpongeBob. So thanks a lot for your donation, Phil. And today's episode aired on August 21st, 1999. And as with most SpongeBob episodes, it is actually two 11-minute shorts, and boy, they go by fast because they're just so packed full of jokes and gags and great stuff.
So good. It's even, I was a little disappointed he picked a season one just because I love season 3, I think is like peak SpongeBob, but doing this early one shows how good they were even at the start, you know?
And I remember when I would watch these with my ex-girlfriend 16 years ago, I don't remember, I remember not liking Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, not liking this episode, but going back to it, I love this. I love just, okay, so I have another theory. So, 9/11 made SpongeBob popular. That's my one theory. My other theory is that
it didn't happen.
There were a lot of cruel jokes at the expense of old people in the 90s because those creators had a bad relationship with their parents and grandparents. I don't think we see as many of those now because we have a better relationship with our parents and grandparents. But I think they were getting rid of a lot of baggage. So things like, Grandpa Simpson and the grandpa on Rugrats, like all of the doddering old people jokes.
The elderly on Ren and Stimpy as well. And this has a lot of that. Yeah, I'm trying to think of current cartoons I watch, and it's like on the Craig of the Creek, which we just mentioned, it has a very nice grandpa on the show, and they're very appreciative of him. And same like Steven Universe, when there's old people, they're not mocking them as doddering old fools.
Even the grandpa on Hey Arnold was a little, had a screw loose. So we don't see.
Well, the grandma was, I mean, she was just senile.
That's right. But we don't see these kind of jokes anymore. And maybe that's for the best. Since I stopped watching SpongeBob, my grandma lost her mind and then died. And it's not as funny anymore to see an insane old man. But you know what? Something in me still finds this very hilarious.
It is
mostly
funny.
because of Ernest Borgnine's amazing performance as Mermaid Man. Just screaming. So we talked about how Rocco had more screaming. He is just screaming throughout this episode. Just a confused old man screaming.
I feel like it helped this one because, well, they're played by actual old people who are also like comedy legends. That's
Ernest Borgnine
really cool
playing like 20 years older too.
Yeah, and it's like, it's interesting. It's like they are like, he's got to screw loose and he's an old man, but he's also like, he does kind of get it together and they do like get their jobs back. I think they turn out better than like Grandpa Simpson ever has.
Really, so Mermaid Man has a companion that's slightly younger than him that can take care of him. And it's a sad but loving relationship in which Barnacle Boy is old, but he's not old enough to have lost his mind yet. So he's sort of the caretaker of Mermaid Man. And he's just very upset about it, but he still loves Mermaid Man. This show is gay.
And Borgnine is so good. I think there's some elderly actors who, if they told them to play a crazy old man,
they'd be insulted.
They would be, but like Borgnine, Borgnine took a lot of he's on Merlin's Shop of Mystical Wonders.
Oh God, yeah.
Borgnine will do what you pay him to do.
It was in this era too. He was on that bad TV movie pilot.
It was two pilots stitched together into a movie.
He was in the framing device. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, they used him to put those things that look nothing. They look like completely. They're clearly shot on different film stock in different periods of time. That's the best episode of television.
Believe in magic, or I'll kill you.
It's one of my top 5 MST3Ks.
It's so
gotta eat all the ice cream.
So, Billy, the man made himself an early dinner.
We have to do an MST3K podcast at some point before we die. But yes, Ernest Borgnine is the Mermaid Man. Tim Conway is Barnacle Boy. So Ernest Borgnine, unfortunately, has passed away. It looks like Tim Conway is not going to be with us for much longer. He's going through some, brain stuff. His family is fighting over his money, which is awesome. And I really want to say
know that's so sad. I love Tim
Not to bring us down,
Conway.
Tim Conway is amazing, and I feel like the writers of this show, they were kids when the Carol Burnett show was on TV, so they watched Tim Conway growing up, and that's why you see Tim Conway popping up in a lot of this 90s stuff, because he was kind of the superstar of the Carol Burnett show. I have not watched it. I think I probably wouldn't enjoy it today, but that was a major comedy influence and a major comedy institution in the 60s and 70s.
I mean, they were the Jimmy Fallon and Horatio Sands of their day.
They really were.
If I make, it's quite a compliment.
We wouldn't have Mama's Family if not for Carol Burnett show. And I swear to God, people, it's come up on podcasts, but I've watched Mama's Family through like 5 times in my life. It was my Marvel universe.
When Ernest Borgnine passed away, or after he passed away, I remember trying to do research to find, like, I got to find this great clip of Ernest Borgnine from the Wild Bunch. And whenever I searched Ernest Borgnine things on YouTube, 99% of them are SpongeBob videos, and it's just all the video tributes to him were all from that. We're all from SpongeBob.
I swear, I think upon doing research for this episode, I think 90% of YouTube is SpongeBob clips.
I think
because
so.
I was just typing in SpongeBob history. What will I find? It's like 30,000 SpongeBob explains World War II. Like World War II explained through SpongeBob memes. Vietnam explained through SpongeBob memes. Like everything explained through SpongeBob memes and clips. It's so weird. But yes,
any actor in Hollywood should be so lucky to have that. Like so late in their life, find that character that just connects with a whole new generation that hard.
Yeah, any SpongeBob character is just now immortal. Anyone who played them is now immortal for life. But so Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, before we get started, their music we hear in the title card is a cover of Go Man Go by Ralph Dollamore. We heard it previously on this network in the Twisted World of Marge Simpson.
It's the same song.
It's the needle drop music they play during the pretzel making montage, but it's really jazzy, it's really up-tempo, and it's mostly used in NFL film highlight reels of like tackles and stuff.
I love this episode too because this is kind of a sequel to our Harvey Birdman episode, which was all Super Friends jokes. This is a hodgepodge of Super Friends references of that 70s era of DC cartoons that also these people, at the same time as they were watching the Carol Burnett show, the creators of this show were watching Super Friends.
That is true, and I think I didn't understand that when I first watched it at like age 19 or whatever. So like, this part is boring. What are they even doing? But so this whole thing starts with the opening of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy from like the 60s or 70s or whenever they were younger men.
Mermaid Man, fleet and forceful, with the ability to assemble and charge the creatures of the deep by the power of Neptune. Mermaid Man, with his young associate Barnacle Boy, fights for all creatures that live in the sea against the forces of evil. Oh no, the raging whirlpool! Mermaid Man, champion of the deep!
So that was Mr. Lawrence as every character in that opening. He's got a great booming. He's also Filbert, but he's got that booming voice as well.
Filbert was him against type, really.
It really was. So yes, it is very Super Frenzy. And what I noticed about this, thinking of how this is a very gag-driven and board-driven show, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy do 3 things. And throughout the show, we see those 3 things being done in different contexts. So it's like they can do the same gags, the same gag premises 3 times. Whenever they have to do their 3 things.
You see these 3 things here that will then pay off in the big action scene at the end of this short.
Yep. And SpongeBob and Patrick try to do it. So they're sort of cosplaying as Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy before we knew what that word meant. And so they're kind of fucking with Squidward. He is tanning underwater. And one thing I really love about SpongeBob upon revisiting it, and I thought a lot about it at the time, is like they don't care about the reality of the world. Like there is a beach underwater with a tide.
Yep.
There is like the sun. There are flowers floating in the sky.
They're throwing water balls at people underwater.
Yeah.
That's
Also,
what's so great about learning that he was a marine biologist. That, like, it doesn't matter. He could have made literally any cartoon. It would have been the same.
it's so unrealistic, and I think like Sandy being in that astronaut costume, they would have just not done that in the future because
just be a squirrel.
Because Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy are just underwater, and they're the same size as SpongeBob.
Yeah, that actually falls against canon because typically humans in the world of SpongeBob are humans. They are live. When Santa Claus comes down, he is a human.
Because everything above the water is live action, right?
Yes, yeah. So when they go above water, they become. Though also, one of my favorite gags in that style was when SpongeBob and Patrick go on the run because they think they're fugitives, even though they aren't. And so they're sitting around a campfire cold. And then Patrick says, wait, how can we have a campfire underwater? And then it just turns off because he pointed out the logical inconsistency of it.
The fact that they're underwater doesn't really matter at all in terms of the physics or the reality. And I love that. So yeah, Squidward is tanning. And of course, SpongeBob and Patrick are messing with him. Instead of having the magic rings of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, they have donuts on their fingers.
If I may be the comic book nerd here on this, before Matt can get to it and out comic nerd me, but
you're talking about the Legion rings? What's this? Green Lantern rings?
Well, no, so the rings are the Wonder Twins wings because they put them together. So that's how it's a hodgepodge of Super Friends. So obviously you've got Aquaman and Aqualad, his sidekick. That's both of their costumes, except Aquaman doesn't have seashells on his nipples.
God, that original Mermaid Man, the young version, is so like Aquaman colors. I bet they couldn't do that now. I bet that would be too close.
I bet you. Yeah, I mean the starfish on his nose and his seashells are the only difference between him and Aquaman. And he even sends out the concentric circles of fish chat as well.
Oh, that's right.
Meanwhile, his invisible boat is a mix of it's an invisible boatmobile. It's the Batmobile plus the Wonder Woman's invisible plane.
I love how clumsy that term is, invisible boatmobile.
Doesn't make any sense.
And Barnacle Boy is kind of dressed like the old Aqualad suit, like from the early Teen Titans days.
Yeah,
he's got a gross, droopy Squidward nose too,
which is actually not even Aqualad. Isn't in Super Friends. He's in the pre-Super Friends, even worse Filmation DC cartoons. Which those were the ones that inspired Ambiguously Gay Duo to the point that like J.J. Schlesinger redrew scenes from Green Lantern cartoons from Filmation and just made those them.
But yeah, so SpongeBob and Patrick try to do all the stuff that Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy do. They've got the donuts on their fingers instead of rings. I think they just run around Squidward instead of forming the whirlpool, the raging whirlpool we heard about earlier. And then they try to summon the creatures of the sea, and they make some great Ren and Stimpy style faces, grunt like poop grunting, basically.
Yes, it's pretty good.
They summon like one jellyfish. And then they build a tent around Squidward as a force field because he gets his powers from the sun. Squidward tears it down and chases them into their house until SpongeBob's pineapple house. And then they find out what happened to their heroes.
SpongeBob, open up!
Reflecto has found our secret lab.
What would the real Mermaid Man do?
Why don't you ask him yourself?
Elaborate, you vile fiend.
He and Barnacle Boy live in the retirement home on the other side of town.
They must be working undercover.
Yeah. Now, please leave me alone.
Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy reunite!
So they travel to the Shady Shoals rest home and deal with that clerk who's reading about the school dropout rate rising.
Also, Lawrence again.
Yeah.
It's,
a lot of great everymen he plays.
I like twice in this you see the donut getting more and more bites in it as Patrick can't stop eating it.
I didn't notice that. Wow, that's a great touch. But yes, they go to the rest home to investigate, to find out, they're working undercover, and the guy's kind of playing along, but he's also like, a lot of characters in this show are just always rolling their eyes at SpongeBob, who wants to exist in this fun fantasy world that's like, yeah, whatever.
I love that energy SpongeBob has, is just unceasing positivity. Like that does make him different from all like the irony drenched. I mean, he's even more innocent than Rocco. Like Rocco has a shorter fuse, even though he's mostly like, oh my.
I think he was inspired by like Pee Wee Herman and Jerry Lewis, and I think also Stan Laurel. Those are the three characters that make up SpongeBob.
Asexual dweebs.
Yes. He is definitely Pee Wee.
He's even dressed like them. He's like dressed very smartly and very professionally.
Pee Wee, yeah, that's his Pee Wee Herman.
Sleeves but no shirt. Yes, so the guy's like, I'll see if they can take some time out of their busy schedules. And then we find out what exactly happened to Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy in their dotage.
Hey, who are those guys?
Are they here to fix the TV?
What do you want?
Are you Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy?
Well, we used to be, but now we're retired.
But you can't retire. There's evil afoot.
What? Evil! Barnacle boy! Don't forget the evil!
All I said was there's evil afoot.
Will you please stop saying that?
Death Ray!
He's having like a Ren and Stimpy style breakdown. I love that scene, and he's so good at playing this insane old man, clearly traumatized from his life as a superhero. I don't think he enjoyed being Mermaid Man.
And Barnacle Boy is just this poor old man. He's like, please don't. You're upsetting him. Like
You're exciting him. But I love Mermaid Man's design as an old man. He's just a perfect sphere with these little spindly limbs, and his seashells over his nipples become a bikini.
That's like a control top almost. Like
suspenders or something.
And the way he just shuffles on his little like slippered feet too.
Slippers.
Yeah, and the starfish is just melted onto his face at this point. Yeah, again, it's so great. It's so demented. I don't think they could do a character like this today. I think these jokes would be considered too cruel. Like, look, that old man lost his mind. But it's still funny because Ernest Borgnine is just screaming at the top of his lungs. I want to be in that room to see what he was doing around that mic. He's
at least like he's reacting to. I think he's just like set in his ways. You know what I mean? Like he still thinks Barnacle Boy is a child, and he still thinks that evil matters. But he's still like he's there. He's like, oh, are these guys here to fix the TV? Like he knows that it's lunchtime. They have to go eat lunch. Like he's not totally insane. They at least have him grounded a little bit, and I think that makes it more palatable today.
He knows the schedule of the nursing home. It's like the TV is here. Here's where we get meatloaf and broccoli,
tartar sauce.
Yeah.
He knows what a TV repairman is. Well, I mean, by rules of Flanderization, he gets worse every appearance after this, though.
I thought they appeared much more often, but they really don't. There's only maybe like 4 more episodes with both of these guys in them.
Yeah,
it's only a couple times. They get mentioned a lot more. Like there's an episode where SpongeBob and Patrick go to watch after the Mermaid Cave, and they're not in it, but they're like an important presence in it.
I mean, it's hard to get them back, like Tim Conway and Borgnine. Well, Borgnine is easily the one to look at in this because he's so huge in this. But I really like Conway's delivery is so naturalistic. Like there's a few times that almost feel kind of like Rick and Morty-esque of like, would you please?
I have that clip coming up, but yeah, he like interrupts himself to like restart the sentence. I don't know if that was in the script or that was just like his reading because he was like, I'm frustrated, so I'm going to stutter before I say this, but it's great.
That is a very Conway thing. If you watch like him, like clips, even from like back in the 70s when he was a younger man, that is very much, they're letting these guys, they're clearly cast because they like these guys. They didn't just find 2 old guys.
And that was a big get for this show. No one knew would be huge, and this is like literally the 6th episode they made of SpongeBob.
When they're probably recording this in like late '98, they're just like, "Hey, we got this cartoon about a sponge. Could you scream?" And like, whatever, it's a paid gig. It's an afternoon. I'm Tim Conway and Ernest Borgnine. I live in LA. I want some money.
He was on the set of Merlin.
On his way to go make Yes Dear episodes, so he's got some time.
Boy.
Or the single guy. Probably the single guy had just been canceled, and Borgnine was like, sure. Actually, this would have premiered just a little. We're going to talk more about Tim Conway in about a month on the Simpsons spinoff showcase. So, I mean, but Tim Conway, he'll show up. He'll play ball. He's a fun guy.
Yeah. So SpongeBob and Patrick.
And you did Borgnine already, right? You guys are past that episode?
Oh, far past Borgnine.
Oh, yeah.
That Borgnine guy.
He's in the past, man. But yeah, so SpongeBob and Patrick get kicked out of the nursing home, and we hear that clip from Patrick. It's too bad they're old. and SpongeBob gives this great motivational speech about old people are the greatest. They're full of wisdom and experience. And then I love when they cut to shots of live action stuff. So there's a shot of a live action old man in a sea captain's hat giving a thumbs up. It goes ding. It brings you out of it, but it's so great. I just love every time in SpongeBob they cut to live action. They did that a few times on Rocco. I think they were experimenting on Rocco. Like, can we just do live action stuff out of nowhere, as we saw in Wacky Deli?
I like SpongeBob's positivity is so nice. Like you didn't see that on meaner shows. Like when other people are just like, hey, these are weird old men, which is the reality of the show. They are weird old men. But SpongeBob, when faced with reality so much in the show, he's just like, what are you talking about? Everything's great. These people are wonderful.
I mean, even though the show is kind of mean to old people, SpongeBob runs counter to that. He's like, no, these people they still matter. We need to get them back together and have them fighting evil again.
And he's not disappointed at all to meet his heroes, even though they should be disappointing. He's like, these guys are still great. What are you talking about? And, I'm also glad they didn't go with the obvious move of just getting Adam West. Like, it totally would have made sense to get Adam West.
He would have done it too, but
for sure.
Boy, Borgnine does such a good job. So we go back to
a lesser show would have a character like SpongeBob who was relentlessly positive, and they would get punished in some way for it. Whereas in this show, he's right. He's always right.
See, I'm telling you guys, it's the post 9/11 show we all needed. So we go back to the nursing home, and they're getting lunch, and I love the Ernest Borgnine line where he's like, to the meatloaf, to the broccoli. Oh, he's so good. And again, he's playing this much, much older. I assume he was in his 70s, but he's playing this like he's 105 years old.
To the table, way.
And so SpongeBob arrives to motivate Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy.
Here comes the TV repairman.
What do you want from us?
Hold on. Just let me look at you.
Stay alert, Barnacle Boy. He's up to something.
Will you stop calling me boy?
Do you remember the time the food supply in Atlantis was running low? So you invented a ray gun that made things grow 6 times their size to shoot at the kelp gardens? But then, the evil man Ray swoops down and swipes the gun away and shoots all the algae. And he gloms onto the undersea dome. And he starts sucking on the glass.
What's your point, kid?
You guys are the greatest heroes of all time, and I think you should come out of retirement.
Listen up, you villains. I want to eat my meatloaf. If you don't get out of here, then by the power invested in me, I now pronounce you man and wife.
What is going on in here?
You may kiss the bride.
So SpongeBob and Patrick are now married. The show is gay, guys. I'm finally putting it together.
That's also a very funny, realistic response from the orderly, who's just like, what the fuck is happening in this room? Why is everyone screaming?
You should not be here. I threw you out already. And just such great acting on
You
Borgnine.
may kiss the bride.
Borgnine naturally goes from being lucid and saying, like, if you don't get out of here, the power vested in me.
He's getting riled up. They're getting his blood boiling.
His brain is trying
can't keep it together.
His brain is trying to figure out how to finish that sentence about the meatloaf.
And there was the great, and then he still calls him the TV repairman from earlier. And
that's good the character stuff to give them both like the idea that like they're there for a reason. They're like, no, we're old. We don't want to do it anymore. We just want to like relax and eat meatloaf. And then that gives SpongeBob a hurdle to be like, no, you have to do this. And it is kind of a selfish thing of SpongeBob to be like, you need to make the television show again because I want to watch it.
and great characterization of SpongeBob as the very excited fan of just like basically Chris Farley showing it. Like, remember that time?
And Tom Kenny doing like the acting, like putting his fingers in his mouth or something for the sucking the floor, whatever he was doing there.
And that he brings up Man Ray, who will appear in Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 3. One of my favorites also, which has the heavily memed scene of "Is this your wallet?" Which is so good.
That's where that comes from. Okay.
Yeah, and when Man Ray decides to give up being a villain at the end of the episode and takes his mask off, you then see that above his neck he has no head. That he is and he just walks away. It makes no sense, and I love it so much. And that was John Rhys Davies, at least in the first appearance of Man Ray.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And he's absolutely fucking hilarious. That is one of the best episodes of TV. He's frozen in tartar sauce and they unfreeze it. It's so good.
I gotta watch that when I get home. But yes, so SpongeBob and Patrick sort of stage a silent movie era crime where Patrick is dressed up as a robber with the black stripes on a white shirt.
No pants. He decides to be bottomless for this, even though he normally is not.
And SpongeBob decides to be a Southern belle, and they think it's working, but apparently it's not working on Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy.
It's working.
Why, are you here to rescue little old me?
Pipe down! You're gonna wake Mermaid Man, and he's ornery when his nap is disturbed.
He's staring off into space.
Ever alert, Mermaid Man has trained himself to sleep with his eyes open.
Confound it! Get away from him!
Stop shouting out napping!
It's not me, old coot!
Yes, that's me.
I'm over here. It wasn't me. I said you just listen every once in a while instead of...
Excuse me, Mermaid Man.
What do you want?
Oh, this better be good.
This'll cheer you up. We're almost done painting your invisible boatmobile.
It's supposed to be invisible. That's it. Oh, we gotta end our life of leisure. It's time to come out of retirement. There's evil afoot.
Evil! Where is it?
There it is. You know what this means?
Donuts!
Oh, brother.
They are taking a lot of cues from Ren and Stimpy, but I just love all of the library music in these shows. I don't think anyone ever does this anymore. It's really just a product of this time, but I love it so much. It adds like gravitas to these goofy cartoon characters.
I love on modern Cartoon Network shows like Craig the Creek or Steven Universe or OKKO, like they hire, musicians to write original music, just even as background music, not just songs that are sung. So it's almost always original background music, but there is something, it makes me feel like warm and fuzzy to hear this ancient needle drop music pulled out of a library in the background.
Yeah, whenever I do...
Did you guys have the soundtrack? I had the soundtrack that had all the original songs on it, and some of those songs that they like purchased, like what's the name of the guy that sings that "Living in the Sunlight, Loving in the Moonlight"?
Tim.
Oh, okay.
What was it?
Tiny Tim.
Yeah. That stuff too was like it's brilliant to pull that stuff into a kid's cartoon for a entire sequence.
I think They Might Be Giants did songs for SpongeBob too.
Best Day Ever was a huge song that played a million times everywhere. You can't even really find the music video for it on YouTube, or at least you couldn't when I looked for it a couple years ago, because Nickelodeon is very strict on that one.
So,
and now it's a Broadway musical.
It is.
It is? Oh, It is. Yeah. I heard it was actually good.
That's what previous Talking Simpsons guest Louis Peitzman, who covers Broadway for BuzzFeed, said. It was very good.
That's right. He did say that. I wasn't thinking about SpongeBob then, but now I am.
I've listened to some of it, and the songs are good. At least I haven't. All I've seen is they did the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade last year, and I watched that performance.
Well, and the smart thing they do in the casting of it is they don't wear costumes. It is just humans costumed in the way that they look like their characters, but they aren't in an outfit. They're not painted green like Shrek the musical did.
Ooh, yuck.
But that cutaway, there's so many Ren and Stimpy moments in that scene there. Like the cutaway to Mermaid Man just staring blankly makes me laugh every time. And when Barnacle Boy says, "It's not me, you old coot," they draw him extra disgustingly aged in a Ren and Stimpy way.
I love those touches. And those guys probably were like, well, Ren and Stimpy's the best cartoon ever. We have to be as good as Ren and Stimpy. But we see the same three gags of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy where they can't quite reunite their rings. And like Barnacle Boy has to put the ring on Mermaid Man's hands because he's so old and like stupid.
He thinks they're donuts.
Yes. And so they throw water balls at SpongeBob, who absorbs them like some sort of sponge. They do the raging whirlpool, but because they're old, it's just like a fun ride for SpongeBob and Patrick.
Dog paddling animation is so cute.
And they call the creatures of the sea, which really just summons everyone from the nursing home. And that still works though. They give SpongeBob and Patrick the bums rush, but that encourages Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy to have new adventures, and they're back on TV, baby.
The Aquaphone! What is it, Chief? Hello? 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 Oh, that phone is still broken. Remind me to get that fixed.
Remind you what?
Remind me of what?
Will our heroes ever get their phone fixed? Tune in next week and find out.
Wow, that was even better than the old show.
It's all thanks to you.
We get all the fun Batman 66 sound effect cards there too.
Their phone is so. I also like right before that where Borgnine says, I feel 5 years younger. Realistic youth.
There's a great sadness to a clip that I didn't get where I think it's right after, the old people fish throw out Patrick and SpongeBob and, Barnacle Boy's like, we should go back into being superheroes again. He's like, who are you?
Oh, yeah.
Very sad.
It is mean-spirited, but it is very funny.
Yeah.
Borgnine is so good at it. And he's, him holding the phone upside down to his head. He's like, what?
Everything in his life is like waiting to be repaired because he doesn't know how to use it.
And man, I love the parting shot of SpongeBob's thumbs up, wink, and then the wink sound effect.
Is that another painting too, or
his arm? I think is moving, but the rest is painted. I believe.
And one of the first scene of that was all visual, but it was them playing checkers, and every checker jump had like a little sound effect blast too. But yeah, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, great characters. I love these insane old people characters we can't have anymore because we've got to be sensitive.
How dare they?
But I love Ernest Borgnine's portrayal of Mermaid Man, and Tim Conway's great too. But just just the insane screaming. Cartoons aren't loud enough these days.
Well, that's something on the opening of the show. I remember the strategy was they wanted a theme song that made children scream in their living room and would wake up their parents in the morning like, "Come on, kids, scream! Are you ready?"
I mean, they were being really tongue in cheek about it, but when I was watching these episodes again, I'm like, boy, if I was a parent, I'd be so pissed off at this. What are you watching?
And then, the opening too is great brand awareness. That's like, children, if you're watching this, scream the name of the show over and over again so you know what the show is. And God, him playing his nose like a flute, always. I love it so
charming.
much.
But the next episode is just called Pickles because it's about forgetting the pickles. And we open with Squidward helping a indecisive customer.
I'll have a Krabby Patty.
How original.
And with extra onions.
Daring today, aren't we? One Krabby Patty, extra onions.
One crying Johnny coming up. First bun, then patty, followed by ketchup, mustard, pickles, extra onions, lettuce, cheese, tomatoes, and bun. In that order. One crying Johnny.
Whatever. 12 Krabby Patties on wheat buns.
Bun, patty, ketchup, tomato, bun, patty, ketchup, 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 bun. 1 dozen crying cows on the farm. Up!
Thanks, Farmer Brown. It's been a thrill serving you.
Can I get some extra salt?
We're all out.
Could you check?
No. Let me guess, Tiny. A small salad?
I'll take a double triple bossy deluxe on a raft, 4x4 animal style, extra shingles with a shimmy and a squeeze, light axle grease, make it cry, burn it and let it swim.
We serve food here, sir.
So that's Bubble Bass. And I wonder, was that Animal Style an early In-N-Out reference?
Oh, yeah.
That's an In-N-Out reference. I was going to point that out as the resident fat dork nerd.
Southern
but also,
Californians.
that first customer was Clancy Brown doing like a wiener voice. That's
Oh,
interesting.
really? Okay.
That's a voice you don't hear from him a lot.
So you Californians in the South there can't stop shutting up about hamburgers.
You guys have In-N-Out too? We do. Go to the wharf, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had it as a teenager, and it was like, is it Five Guys? Is it In-N-Out? Is it like Shake Shack? What the fuck is happening?
Well, in '99, when this episode came out, I mean, the idea of a secret menu at an In-N-Out definitely was fascinating. You just hear the stories of like, if you order a 4x4 Animal Style, you'll get something exciting.
What is Animal Style? I used to know.
Matthew, I'm going to defer to you on this.
It's I believe it's the way they fry it in like mustard and onions, right? And it's like, is it just mustard and onions or like a special sauce?
I'm not
that. I've never had Animal Style. I tend to go for the regular.
Yeah, I'm boring. I don't want to. 4x4 is 4 patties on it.
They serve it out of a trough because you're an animal.
They also have the Flying Dutchman. There's a secret menu called the Flying Dutchman as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's a secret Bible quote in every cup. Find it.
But hey, if these guys, if at In-N-Out their biblicalness has made them pay better than minimum wage at their places, then hey, sign me up for that religion, buddy. I want some of that. But I love all these old-timey diner slogans for food in here. That's what's pretty fun here.
Yeah,
Crying Johnny.
It's another example of, Matthew was saying SpongeBob is never punished for being positive and being silly and fun, but I love just the tired characters in the show going, whatever, okay, I don't care. care. But he does not acknowledge their negativity at all. He just is so in his own like world of happiness and fun and positivity.
It works great.
He thinks he and Squidward are like best friends because they live next door to each other and they work together.
And Squidward is the polar opposite of SpongeBob. And the only time Squidward gets animated is when he's like worried about a loss in status, or just how it's not just that Squidward is negative in the way that SpongeBob is positive, but also that Squidward cares so much about social status and how he appears to other people, while SpongeBob doesn't care at all.
That's a good point.
And like so many episodes come from Squidward being like, will people respect my art? Or why don't anybody care about me? And meanwhile, SpongeBob just doesn't care. And it's easy. Like, I'm much more of a Squidward than a SpongeBob.
Oh, I'm 100% Squidward.
Yeah.
My name
we
is
should
Bob.
also mention, as we're talking about voice actors, Roger Bumpus's performance as Squidward is just one of the great performances of all time. I think his only other like he's done some other stuff, but like his other most famous role I think is like Dib's dad. He played Dib's dad on Invader Zim, which is also an incredible performance.
And a very different voice too, right?
Yeah, it's like more of a authoritative.
He's a superhero.
He's a super scientist.
Yeah.
He's like a Jonas Venture making toast. That guy.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's wow. Such opposite characters.
Yeah, I feel like they're pulling a real Bert and Ernie dynamic with Squidward and SpongeBob.
Oh yeah,
especially vocal wise in terms of Bert, like
and shape.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, this episode too is almost. I think of this episode as kind of a proto-plankton episode. There's no plankton in here. You have Bubble Bass, who is the would-be arch nemesis of SpongeBob. That I think after his first appearance, like, this guy's just too gross and unhappy. Like this,
he doesn't come back for a while. I checked.
Yeah, the only other time I can remember seeing him in the show is in a non-speaking role when he sits on Plankton when he's being SpongeBob's friend at the movies, and he's like, "Hey, Bubble Bass, you're sitting on my friend." Though D. Bradley Baker, who is another voice acting superstar, he's great at Bubble Bass. Like very few voice actors do maniacal laughter in so many different ways that D. Bradley Baker does. He's so good at it.
Does he also play Klaus on American Dad?
Yes.
Oh, he's really good at that too.
Yes. He's one of those guys that like he's like the new Frank Welker. Like he plays like every animal in things.
Yeah.
And like listening to that guy talk about how he does those, like he's Momo and Appa on Avatar, which are like the most inhuman sounds I've ever heard a person make. And he talks about like, yeah, if you close off this chamber on the top left side of your head, like he like changes his body structure to make those noises. It's not like he'll like grab his throat and squeeze it and like push his ear a certain way to do certain voices. It's nuts.
You can hear a lot of the body or like facial contortions he's doing to do Bubble Bass in this. It's a very like he's shoving his face into his neck or something. It's great. But yes, so Bubble Bass takes advantage of the microscopic text on the Krusty Krab sign where there is a money back guarantee, and he gets his $2 back from Mr. Krabs, who tries to offer him discounts on bathroom tokens and free glasses of water with free ice.
All because SpongeBob forgot the pickles, which destroys SpongeBob's sense of self. That's another important fact about SpongeBob that separates him, I think, from so many other previous Nicktoon characters, is that SpongeBob is the greatest at what he does. Like, but he's the best, but he has no, it's kind of self-effacing, I guess. He's not full of himself at all. He's the greatest fry cook in the world, but or at least in Bikini Bottom, but he's not full of himself about that. And so seeing him make things, though also that's something as a workers' rights type person. I love that there's constant jokes about how SpongeBob has an ability that is worth more than you can't even put a price tag on. It's priceless, and yet he is constantly exploited by Mr. Krabs and paid nothing for it.
Yeah, after 15 years of being an adult, coming back to this series, watching this episode, I really identified with, like, screwing up at work can make you doubt everything you do.
Yeah.
Like, I am worthless.
Yeah.
I am worthless. And that's how the system is designed, man. But so SpongeBob is getting new burger orders, and they're making him doubt himself.
I need a Krabby Patty.
Okay, I am not gonna blow it this time. Let's see. Bun down, then ketchup, then mustard, then pickles? No! That's not right! Bun down. Mustard, then ketchup, lettuce, then the pickles? No. Mustard down, buns up, down. Where's the patty go? Pickles, ketchup, wait. Bang, I'm losing it. Bun down, shoe, mustard, pan, bun, no! No! Mr. Krabs, I am so confused. I can't remember how to do anything.
So Mr. Krabs sends SpongeBob home and makes Squidward the new fry cook.
Tom Kenny's delivery of like, I am so confused.
No!
It's so good. He gets so much emotion out of this ridiculous voice that like, if you were asked to talk in that voice, you couldn't emote in it. You'd be putting all your energy into just doing it. It's like trying to act in a Mickey Mouse voice. That's why not everybody gets those. It's not a job anybody can really do.
I'm really surprised Tom Kenny didn't find voice acting like 10 years earlier. Rocco was the first voice role he did.
Well, he was stabbing away at being a comedy star.
He was college favorite.
The college favorite Kinsey.
What did they do before SpongeBob worked there? Like, it was already a famous establishment that was very popular and a lot of people came to, and SpongeBob was very excited to work there. Who made all the Krabby Patties?
Well, if I may go into a little SpongeBob lore here. Well,
please.
first, in the pilot episode when SpongeBob arrives, it is just Squidward and Krabs. But there is a later episode in the Hillenburg years where the first fry cook who used to work there shows up, and everybody, like Squidward and Krabs, are just like, oh, we like him more. Like, he was the good old guy. He was really great. And you're not as cool. And poor SpongeBob is just like, oh, I'm not as cool or good as this guy. And then the guy tells SpongeBob actually an important lesson at that of just like, the reason I don't work at the Krusty Krab anymore is that I'm better than this place.
Oh, wow.
And I was paid very poorly by Mr. Krabs. It's guys, you know, I'm going to rewatch that episode after we record this.
I'm going to rewatch so much of this show.
I also I greatly identify with the idea that, like, you know, when you like, yeah, screwing up at work is one thing, but like, you know, when you forget how to do something you do all the time, like, if you ever like sat down in your car and been like, wait a second, like, or like you like for a second you momentarily forget like which pedal is which, or like you forget like a very good friend of yours' name for a second, you just blank on it, and that like destroys my whole reality when that happens.
Or
and
like
it definitely does happen.
A password you put in every day, you're like, wait a minute, what is the password?
Yeah.
What is this password?
Yeah, like my debit PIN number. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, hang on, I have to sit there or like, have you ever like not thought about your birthday for long enough that you're like, oh wait, what is my birthday?
I forget how old I am sometimes.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, it's these subconscious actions that you can do without thinking about it until when you start thinking about it, you forget how you did it, and it completely wrecks your shit, as is happening to SpongeBob. The show minds so much out of identifiable, just like observational comedy that then they take to such heightened absurdity. Like that is a key to the SpongeBob show's quality for sure.
And even though it's not about, you know, real things like Rocko's Modern Life, like going to do your laundry or going to the movies, there's identifiable characteristics of people and events in this, even though they're totally more absurd than even in Rocko. So yeah, SpongeBob goes home, and he doesn't know which way his home is first. He's got to be told. He's losing his mind. So at home, he's working on a pen and paper, just like what order things go in on a Krusty Burger. Krabby Patty. Krabby Patty. They're so close to each other.
Very different.
Krusty Burger. He also can't figure out which order things go on his bed. Like, does the mattress go above him, below him? He doesn't sleep because he's sleeping like under the mattresses. He doesn't know how to turn off his alarm, so he shoves Gary into the alarm.
Him being drawn with a 5 o'clock shadow in his underwear is so funny looking.
SpongeBob in underwear is just so weird. It's just like a texture stuck to him. It's like, what are you covering up there, buddy?
Well, because he walks around naked other times too, which that's so. Another of my favorite gags in SpongeBob is when he goes native, so he strips down, and at first they do the cartoony gag of like things obscuring his genital area, but then in the middle they're just like, well, no, he doesn't have genitals, so we're not obscuring it anymore. He's just a square.
So Mr. Krabs, Squidward is screwing everything up. He's burning milkshakes and french fries and burgers.
He burnt my shake. I love that. It's just such a flat delivery of like, he burnt my shake.
And so he goes to SpongeBob's pineapple house and finds everything in total disarray.
SpongeBob? SpongeBob!
Mr. Krabs, hello. Do you how do?
Why are you talking funny, lad?
Anything can't do right because Pickles.
Nonsense. You'll be back making Krabby Patties like your old self in no time.
I think don't ready back to go to work, Mr. Krabs.
You're fine, me boy. Ooh. Well, maybe not. All we need to do is get your confidence back. So you can make me more money. Patties.
How do that?
It's like riding a bike. You never forget. I'm gonna help you.
So the bike was cooking in a saucepan on SpongeBob's stove.
It's pretty cute. I like that cutaway. Though bikes normally later in the SpongeBob universe will be drawn to have like propellers on the wheels, not wheels.
That's right.
But the only hearing this in the audio form is when it hit me like, oh, they're playing the ukulele music backwards. I didn't notice that.
There's a lot of thought that goes into everything in this show. I mean, that's why it's so good. If you read that oral history, you'll see how hands-on Hillenburg was with like every step of the way. Maybe that's why he wanted to stop making episodes. Just like he was probably working like 18-hour days on SpongeBob, just on every step of the process. But yes, Mr. Krabs decides to retrain SpongeBob. He sets out all the ingredients in front of him. As a
SpongeBob
training.
nailing bread to his tabletop is another great visual gag.
That is really good. So Mr. Krabs lays out all the ingredients in front of SpongeBob. Days pass, but finally SpongeBob gets it.
I got it! It's all very clear to me now, Mr. Krabs.
It is?
Yes! I finally realized that I can't do it! I can't do it, Mr. Krabs! I'm a failure!
Don't talk like that.
Don't you get it, you crustaceous cheapskate? I can't make a double Krabby Patty with the work. I can't put a patty on a bun with lettuce, cheese, onions, tomatoes, ketchup, mustard, pickles, and top bun together in that order!
It's time.
So yes, he finally figures it out through anger. I think he figures it out.
I love when he gets mad at Mr. Krabs. It's always funny, like him just yelling at Mr. Krabs because he's always nice. He's always understanding to people. So when SpongeBob breaks to scream at him, it's so funny. Like actually, I want to play. I just pulled it up.
Oh please!
This clip. This is my favorite SpongeBob mad at Mr. Krabs line.
Listen, you crustaceous cheapskate! Squidward's been living at my house, driving me crazy, and you're not gonna hire him back all because of a stupid dime!
Love that. Because Mr. Krabs thinks that Squidward stole his first dime.
Oh, I've seen that one.
And then he fires him, and it was in his back pocket the whole time, and it was a like caveman dime, like the first wheel, which doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, SpongeBob is not allowed to get as angry as I'd say a similar character like Rocco would, but I do love the moments where he is allowed to be mad at things.
It's great. And actually, I didn't realize he calls him a crustaceous cheapskate in both these angry moments.
Lazy writing. That's what's wrong with this show. So SpongeBob returns to the Krusty Krab. A charred Squidward is shoved out of the kitchen. I guess he burned himself. And everyone reacts positively. And then Bubble Bass returns, and SpongeBob has to make his order, and we'll see what happens next.
Still no pickles! See? You failed again, SpongeBob Loser Pants.
Wait a minute! Look! He's been hiding the pickles under his tongue the whole time.
And there's the pickles from last time, too.
And there's my car keys.
And there's my ride.
3 cheers for the return of our master fry cook, SpongeBob! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray!
And nobody cheers for Squidward. In fact,
You sting.
they hate him more than ever.
This
Oh boy.
This really solidifies the character of Squidward for me too in this. It's not just that Squidward is a dour dude who lives next door to SpongeBob. It's that Squidward, no one likes Squidward and he's mean to everybody too. Like that's another important aspect of him. I think this too is one of the first Mr. Krabs' cheap jokes in the series too. So a lot of solidifying of character traits in this episode.
They didn't make him Scottish.
Big respect to Bubble Bass, though, for being able to stealthily remove pickles from a sandwich and hide them under his tongue in a single bite. Like,
For days.
Yeah, for days.
Is he savoring them or what? It's like LSD. You're putting them under your tongue, buddy. What's going on there?
I mean, hey, a guy that good with his tongue is pretty popular, I would bet.
Not in this asexual world, Henry.
Oh, that's true.
But yeah, that was Pickles. A fun little episode to pair with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. Although I think Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, it's the best one in this little selection.
Oh yeah, of the two, it's the better one. I mean, this is professional work job episodes of SpongeBob are usually better with like Plankton around, or it's about his process. Like Bubble Bass is the one like, you're not fun. You're just a jerk, a big fat jerk. Though I do like that he's a fish with a hairy belly. That is
true.
So I love these episodes. This is a very good pick. I mean, as established, I am a huge fan. I've been a huge fan for almost my entire life. And I think this is a solid pick. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, I think, is especially close to me because I grew up as a little nerd, just like you guys, like idolizing people that I saw on television and wanting to meet them and going to comic book conventions a lot as a kid and meeting a lot of those people. Like I think I've talked about in the show how I met Kevin Smith when I was like 9.
Yeah.
That's what you did when you grew up in New Jersey as a little nerd who read comic books.
It's hard to avoid Kevin Smith in New Jersey.
It really is. He's everywhere.
Yeah, you have to meet him. I met him several times, and I met Brian O'Halloran, and I met Jason Mewes, and I think I met a couple of the other ones.
You can spot those jorts a mile away, I swear. No, he's doing much better now, folks.
He's so healthy now, but he still has giant jorts.
Those are his brands.
I guess so, yeah.
His Jinko jorts. But
comfy.
Yeah, I got to say that it's weird to, SpongeBob is the most popular cartoon of the past 20 years, like worldwide, globally. I think the Minions are ripping him off too, by the way.
Yeah,
little yellow things that are happy all the time.
With little pants.
Yeah, oh my God. We're through the looking glass people, but yeah, it's weird to be like, you know what? SpongeBob's pretty good. But that's my takeaway from this, because I watched it during the boom years, and then I just forgot about it and just continued on without me, and then going back to it like, wow, after, studying animation, learning about a lot more about pop culture, growing up, I have a greater appreciation for the show now. I thought it was just always like, it's kind of a lesser Ren and Stimpy, and I still like Ren and Stimpy more, but I appreciate the show on its own terms a lot more now in my old age as Mermaid Man.
The comedic chops of SpongeBob are more evident to me than ever going back to it, and it's just so funny, and I understand why the kids youngsters like my young ward Matt here, but that why youngsters like this show on the level that we love Simpsons, and it becomes another language in the same way. Like it, it's amazing to think that how I ingested this show pre-binge era. Like it was just, I better put on Cartoon Network and hope, or I better put on Nickelodeon and hope that they're doing a 4-hour marathon of SpongeBob on a Saturday, and hope that I see an episode I haven't seen before. Like that's how I ingested the first 60 episodes of SpongeBob in the pre-streaming world. Like I think it was one of the last new shows I got into before I could stream it or get full seasons on DVD, because you couldn't really do that for SpongeBob in 2003.
No, they released like, well, here's 5 episodes you might like on a DVD.
And they still do that to this day.
Losers. But yeah, thanks for joining us, folks, for What a Cartoon. It's great to dip into SpongeBob. It's about damn time. So thanks to our patron who picked this out.
Thanks, Philip.
Yeah, I mean, we needed to do this in our first year because, again, it's a huge cartoon. And I'm sure we'll be back because there are 240 episodes of SpongeBob. And now they're making more. So we got to return to it. We might do the movie for our new movie podcast. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to digging back into the show. And again, if you have Amazon Prime, it is on Amazon Prime, the first 4 seasons. And I don't know, were these ever released like a season on Blu-ray or DVD or what?
I know they put out DVD box sets of the first season.
Yes.
Yeah, eventually they did put it out, and they did say season, which I think it was one of the first like animated shows to say that on it. Like it didn't, like DuckTales says like volume or whatever. Like it said season 1 and season 2, and they're very nice little packages.
That reminds me, someone must have won a bet or someone hit a button or something, because now the final DVD of DuckTales is coming out. I just saw an ad for it. I'm like,
whoa.
It's been like a decade. What's happening? But I mean,
crazy.
I'm happy, but I think somebody's realizing like, oh, there's still a market for physical media, because it's disappearing and there's no way to get certain things. But also, Matthew alerted me to the fact that King of the Hill is now on Hulu.
Hurrah!
That is
finally.
like,
I watched a couple episodes yesterday. Just fantastic show. We've done an episode on it on this show. It's just the greatest show in the world. Everybody, if you haven't seen it, please go watch it. But also buy physical media because you know. Filmstruck just went away or is about to go away, so that totally sucks and is proof that that your DVDs and Blu-rays are probably still the way to go.
I mean, I brought up King of the Hill because it went off. So I think 2012 was the last year it was streaming, maybe on Netflix. And then I bought all the DVDs again because it's like, well, when will it ever show up? 6 years later, it showed up, but how long will it be on Hulu? We don't know. But I will always have my DVDs of King of the Hill.
I just repurchased the first 4 seasons of it because they were on sale for $20. It was like $20 for the 4 seasons. Okay, sure. And it felt like it would never come back to streaming. So now that it's on Hulu, that changes things.
Let's make more King of the Hill. But
yeah,
Matthew,
and I've been for another What a Cartoon related show. I've been going through. I just finished yesterday. I've now watched every Venture Brothers commentary, which I hadn't watched one since the second season DVD came out. So now I'm fully up on all the shenanigans of those guys over the last 15 years.
Dear God, an amazing Retronauts fan gave me that Venture Brothers book in Portland.
I had to buy it myself.
So good.
Hey, be on a podcast for 8 years. You might get one thing.
All right.
But I have to rewatch the whole series, so maybe we'll do more of that for this show, or maybe a new miniseries.
That's what I did. I read the book and then I watched the whole series again. And I've done including my commentary watch, and now a friend of mine and I are watching the show. I have within the last 2 months watched Venture Brothers 3 times and also read that book. And
my goodness,
man, it's just the greatest show of all time.
So yes, Matthew, you're a special guest. Can you tell us where we can find you, how we can support you, and what kind of stuff you make?
Yes, I make a show on YouTube called youtube.com, or it's called Cartoons 101 at youtube.com/Cartoons 101, which is about the history of animation. I've talked about Nicktoons a bunch. Like I did a video about Rocco creator Joe Murray, who we've talked about. I did a video about Jewish representation in the Rugrats and general representation in the Rugrats, and a bunch of. I did a video about Ren and Stimpy creator John Kay, as we've mentioned that guy on the show. About what a man he is, what a guy.
You did a couple years ago.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You did that a couple years ago, though. So it's there's worse things to talk about now than in.
Yeah, I did that almost 2 years ago about him, and it's now over 100,000 views, and like 90% of those came from the last 6 months or so. I don't know why.
And I bet all those people in the comments saying, "How dare you talk about him?" are regretting what they're saying now, or maybe they're not because they're awful.
That is supported at patreon.com/cartoons101, which is Patreon, where you get an exclusive podcast normally every week, but I don't know if I've talked about this in this podcast or not yet, but I recently was robbed of my computer that I make my videos and my podcasts and everything in my life on. It was stolen from me and smashed in public. This literally happened to me.
That's what you get
and I've gone through an almost 2-month process of getting it fixed.
It's been quite a saga.
Where it will finally almost be ready to go in the next couple weeks, I believe. So by the time you hear this, if you go to the Patreon, the podcast should be resuming. But even if it hasn't yet, there's still months and months and months of podcasts there where I've interviewed people like Bill Oakley and Scott Gardner and Evan Dorkin. And check those out. And you can get exclusive doodles done by me. And you can also, I've been to put some content up. I'm a writer who lives in Los Angeles trying to be a writer. And I put up some of the stuff that I've written on there, like a short pilot that I wrote and a new pilot that I wrote. I think I'm about to put up there that I think is pretty good. And I'd like to know what you think of it.
Cool.
Me and Bob supported Cartoons 101, and we like when folks do the same.
Yes, please do. And as for us, we are supported by the Talking Simpsons Network. If you go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, you can find out how to support our shows. At the $5 level, you can get every episode of this podcast and Talking Simpsons a week ahead of time and ad-free. That is the ideal way of listening to those shows. At the $5 level, you also get a ton of bonus podcasts. Too many to mention here, but there's dozens and dozens just waiting for you. Exclusive series, interviews, you know the deal. And at the $10 level, we have a new monthly movie podcast. We replace our video tier with a new monthly movie podcast in which we do a movie every month in the What a Cartoon style, and patrons can vote on which movie we do. And the first movie will be
Batman, the Mask of the Phantasm.
And perhaps it's already out at this point. I'm not sure, but it's either coming out or it will be out soon. But you'll know all about it if you go to the Patreon at patreon.com patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. If you can only give $1, we'd appreciate that too. Every little bit helps the show because that's what we live off of. So thank you so much. It's patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
And I'm HENEREYG on Twitter. If you follow me there, you'll learn all about the new updates that happen on our Patreon when we send live a new podcast, when we send live a new Talking Simpsons, when we have a new poll that you can vote in, when we announce the new schedule for What a Cartoon so you can find out what we'll be doing each month in What a Cartoon. You'll learn all of that from tweets by me at HENEREYG, or just follow the Patreon. Come on already!
And as for me, I am Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts. That's every Monday and occasionally Friday at retronauts.com, or look for Retronauts in your podcast machine. It's a classic gaming podcast. We've been doing it for 12 years, so just go online, find an episode that has a topic that you're interested in, and subscribe to it, buddy. We're a good podcast, I think. But thanks a lot for listening, folks. We'll see you next week with the Aqua Teen Hunger Force episode, The Mayhem of the Moonanites. See you then.
The door! The door! Mr. Krabs! The front door is missing! Oh.